Hey everyone, my name is Peyton, and in this tutorial I want to show how to set up a simple smoke particle. This of course would be used for in your environments and everything, just to add that extra level of detail. And of course I am just an environment artist, not actually an effects artist, so I'm kind of limited with overall the amount of stuff that I know about the like Niagara system and effects compared to someone that focuses in that. But I do want to just show like how I set up a simple smoke that can kind of help improve my scenes, because I think as an environment artist, as you're kind of building out these personal environments and all, and you want to add those extra details, I think smoke can definitely be one of those, or just particles in general. And so I'm just going to be walking through, yes, the simple steps, at least inside of the Niagara system, inside of Unreal, and what I basically do. So as you see here, I have a couple of just simple variables. It's all the same texture, all the same like setup. It's just that I can kind of adjust the color and whatnot with them. And so the end result will basically be something of this sort, and then you'll have the control to really take it wherever you would like. And the only texture that I actually brought in was the smoke opacity. So if I open this up, you'll see that it's just a simple kind of cloud shape that I made inside of Photoshop. It has some nice like details and everything in it, but nothing too crazy, just because I want just an idea of kind of the breakup of the silhouette, but we'll kind of get the rest of it figured out inside of the system and all. So what we're going to do, and as I said, we're going to be using Niagara, which is Unreal Engine's basically particle system and all. It used to be called Cascade back in Unreal Engine 4, probably I guess a couple years ago now. And yeah, it's a really cool program, but I think now a lot of the updates and stuff have been really nice. UI is very pleasing, and overall I feel like it's pretty easy to use, even as someone that doesn't really focus in that field and all. So yeah, what we're going to do to kind of start with this is we're going to make a Niagara emitter. So there is two different things that we're going to be using: a Niagara emitter and a Niagara system. So if I right click here in our content browser, I can go ahead and go to effects and click the Niagara emitter. So I'm going to do that, and there's a couple of options here. We're going to go with the new emitter because we don't have anything that we want to we're not going to copy or anything like that. So and now we get this window. This window is going to give us some starting points basically for our particle. So if we don't want to necessarily start from scratch, this might have something very useful that we could start from, get a basis, and can maybe adjust it to get the end result. And I probably am going to use one of these because generally sometimes, like especially for environments, you can find something in here that can get you a decent start basis. And since we're doing something of the sort with smoke, I want to basically do something that kind of moves upwards as well. So I think the fountain emitter is a perfect example for that. Of course, like fountains kind of have that gravity where it comes back down and all, but we could probably easily adjust that. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with the fountain for this purpose. So gonna hit finish, and it's going to make it down here. I can rename it to let's say smoke emitter. There we go. And as you notice, the smoke emitter, I cannot actually drag into the level. And that's because the emitter itself is just the emitter, and you actually have to have it inside of a Niagara system to place inside of the level. And the kind of the difference between the two is an emitter is just one singular emitter itself, but with a system you can have multiple basically emitters placed inside of that one, kind of think about how you can place multiple things inside of a blueprint. Similar thing with this here. So let's say that we were doing a full fire and we wanted like a fire down here and then the smoke and everything else, maybe some embers. We could kind of have that all in one system, but they would be individual emitters, if that makes sense. So what we can do now that we kind of have the direction that we wanting to go for, I'm going to click on my smoke emitter down here, and it's going to open up the Niagara setup and all. So this is the basically the editor for Niagara, and just allows us to really be able to work. Overall, it seems a little bit busy at the moment, but I'll kind of walk through all the individual areas and just quickly show the important stuff, at least for the purpose of us making this smoke and all. And while we're on the topic of smoke and just trying to come up with these new systems and everything like that, I do want to also mention how important it is to keep safe and up to date with online risks and your personal security. For me, I feel like it is every week where I hear from a friend or relative that has been impacted by their personal information being stolen. Data brokers sell that information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, relatives, it's all out there on the internet. And that's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps me reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, or other sensitive information. I don't know if you saw this recently, but AT&T actually revealed that over 73 million customer records, both existing and former customers, were released on the dark web. They recommend those affected use strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, thankfully, Aura does all this for me. And best of all, I don't have to download several different apps just because the company couldn't keep my data secure. If my info was compromised in the AT&T data breach, I wouldn't worry because Aura is always on, always doing the hard work of keeping me safe. I value my privacy and I also value yours. You can go to aura.com/Peyton Barnett, which is also linked below in the description, to start your 2-week free trial and see how Aura could start saving you today. And now back to our actual smoke that we're kind of setting up in here with our emitter and everything. I'm going to start over here on the left side and kind of talk about, of course, this is our viewport. And then down bottom is our timeline, so we can kind of see the state of the particle over time. Then over here on the right hand side is a details panel. You'll notice that as I click through the editor here, this might change. And overall right now what it's showing is all of the details of the actual emitter itself. So we're basically reading through all of this. If you want to kind of highlight or isolate specific things, we can also just click through here and it's just going to open up that specific thing. So it could be a little bit less intimidating if we use that method instead, because then we can just focus on what we want to work on with that. And so where we're going to start is going to click here at a couple of locations. So this is our emitter, like I was mentioning. The top portions generally are like the properties, our material, the spawn state, and the particle spawn. So a lot of this stuff up here is kind of at the initial spawning of the particle. And then down here with the particle update is where, or what happens to the particle over time. So does it change color? Does it change size? All of that. So basically down here is where we might adjust things over the time. It's very similar to the gravity that we notice here. Right now it goes up and then it comes down. That's probably going to be the culprit of that gravitational force, and so it's going to be how we resolve that. But particle updates, just stuff over time. And so a couple of other things too that I want to mention real quick is as we kind of walk through this, you can notice our particles, how many particles are on screen right here. And this is kind of relative to how many are spawning, like versus how many are, or the lifetime of the particle, so how long it's being spawned or staying around. And so if we think about the actual lifetime of the particle, so what I mean by that is going to actually kind of jump in and start creating our smoke. So I'm going to jump over here, and we might find underneath our initialized particle our lifetime, min and max. And so basically this is how long these particles, once they are spawned, are staying alive before they die off. And why this is important is one thing that, of course, is kind of, I guess, a problem with this particle overall is I feel like the speed is way too fast. And so we probably need to slow it down a little bit and then, you know, kind of work from there. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of that gravity force. So can check it off, and just to make sure that that is the correct thing, which it is. So I'm just going to actually delete it. So it's no longer in there. Now we have our particle just shooting up, starting to look, you know, at least in the same direction as our smoke. And then what we're going to do is go down here, and I assume that speed is probably coming from something here, which is going to be our velocity. So sometimes the vocabulary can be a little bit confusing, like there's similar words sometimes, but overall, like a lot of the times, yeah, the words kind of speak for themselves and tell you exactly what it does. Might take a little bit of finessing or even looking up a specific word, but generally you can find yeah, this stuff relatively easy in here. So I'm going to click on this velocity, and we can see that we have a velocity speed, a min and a max. Probably going to drop this down, so it's going much slower. I'm going to go 200, and let's do 250 for this one. So I want to make it much slower. And so now we can see, all right, it's not too bad. We have a better speed going on, and yeah. So we can also adjust the cone angle if we wanted to. So I could expand it out, but not at the moment. I think right now, with the direction we got, I like that. So now that we have a little bit slower speed, one thing you will notice is, as I was mentioning, it's not going as far. And the reason why is because of our lifetime. So as these are spawned and then they're kind of moving on, they die off at some point, you know? And so with that, depending on the speed, very similar to like how a vehicle can travel a certain distance based off of like the speed that it's going in a certain time. And so since our speed is much slower, our particle is reaching like less far than what it was previously, because it's the same amount of time that it's given, but it's going much slower. So what we need to do with that is probably increase a little bit of the lifetime, so they stay around a little bit longer. So I can go over here and let's change the lifetime min to maybe a 2.5, and let's do this one to 3. So there we go. And now you can see that, yeah, they have more time to live, and they are going much farther here. So yeah, looking good there. And one thing, kind of mentioned it, but of course we are now having more particles on screen. And the reason being, of course, is because they're still spawning at the same rate. If we go here to our spawn rate, we can see it's at 90. So there's 90 particles every second being spawned or so. And then now the time into which they're staying on screen is longer. And so there's just more hanging around. And so that's why we're basically, yeah, just having a higher number. This is something to just keep watch of, you know, some of the costs and everything of particles, but this is a relatively very low number, and, you know, we're going to adjust that as well. And yeah, this should be a pretty cheap and affordable particle for at least our environment, you know. We'd probably want to dive into it a little bit more for a full game environment, but for just personal work, I think it's fine. So now that we have that, a couple of things. I think we could probably enlarge the size of these circles just to make them feel a bit bigger. So I could probably go here. And this is one of those instances where I was kind of talking about the vocabulary could kind of seem a little bit weird. So we have mass and we also have sprite size. So sometimes, mass, size, very similar and could be a little bit confusing. But what we're looking for right now is actually the size. So I'm gonna go down here and adjust this to be, let's say 40, 50, 30, 40 maybe. So not too bad. As you can see, we're starting to get a smoke like kind of billowing outwards. And yeah, it's kind of working. So as we're getting to this larger size, that means we probably need less of those particles overall. So I can jump over to my spawn rate and drop this down maybe to, let's say 45. So as you notice, not too big of a difference. Think like still pretty dense and yeah, working fine. If I want to, I can come back over here, maybe increase the size a little bit more. And there we go. Boom. So yeah, not bad. And so one thing, of course, now this is a very like stylized looking look to our smoke. We want to get a little bit more detail to that smoke overall, and one thing we can do is actually replace the material because right now those circles just are not it, and it's just really the kind of the temp one anyways. So if we click this little icon up here, that's actually our material, and you can see here it's just using the default sprite material. So it's just a sphere, nothing special, and we can just replace this. So what I'm going to do is hit apply, exit out of that, and then I want to right click down here and just make a simple material like normal. And I'm going to make this our smoke emitter material. So now I'm going to double click on this, and it is nothing special at the moment. It's just a normal material. We don't have it actually to be a sprite yet or anything. So what I'm going to do is going to click here, and I'm going to make sure that it's surface. We're going to change it to additive, and then I want it to be unlit. So there we go, hit apply. Now we have only 3 locations at the moment that we can plug things into. What I'm going to do with those is I want my, let's go down here. I want this texture, so I'm going to bring that in and of course use it for my opacity. If I want to, I can kind of pair it with the multiply. That way we can control the intensity if we would like to. Let's just say opacity, intensity, and we'll set it to 1, kind of a default, and hit apply, and then there we go. And then with the emissive color, what I'm going to actually do is right click and look for particle color, and so we can see that here, and there we go. Gonna plug in the RGB to that. Now you can see this is showing up as just our white kind of shape. If I flip it to this, there, yeah, you can sort of see the shape. I can hit apply, and that's all we really need to do for right now with this material. So I can actually go back over to our smoke emitter and then click here and just drag in that material to that location. And now we see that we have our material showing up in that same location. So a couple of things, of course, this size might need to be adjusted a little bit. So I might go down here, crank it up more, because I think overall the texture that I brought in, it's just nothing wrong with it, but the size of it in relation. Like you see all this padding out here, probably just a little too small. So yeah, can crank it up a bit, and basically just make up for that difference in here, no problem at all. And there we go, starting to get, yeah, some shapes. So not too bad. Let's say that works. Maybe our spawn rate we could drop down to 40. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I actually want to bring it into our level. And so how I'm going to do that, of course, is, as I said, emitters can't come in here. So I'm going to make a Niagara system. You can go here, right-clicking effects, Niagara system to do that. Or if you'd like, it can be a little bit easier if you already have the emitter made. I can just right-click on the emitter and say create Niagara system. So there we go. And now there's the smoke emitter system here. And you'll notice that I am able to drag that out into the scene. So there is our smoke, looking good, but looking way too bright. And so yeah, now it's in our scene and working in our level. So what I can do now with this system is I can also just edit things in here if I would like. So going to go over and with the emitter itself. So here's our emitter. And as you see, like this is the system's parameters or properties and all. This is that specific emitter for the smoke, but we can also have additional emitters in here if need be, since it's the system. But what I'm going to do is I want to adjust the color a bit, because one thing you'll notice now is that we're getting this popcorn effect at the top where it's kind of popping. We really don't want that. And then also it's way too bright, so we probably want to adjust our kind of opacity, the values and all, and playing around with that. So what I'm going to do is I actually like using underneath the particle update, I can add things by pressing this add button here, and I can type in something like color. So there we go. And so now that we have this color node here, over here to the right under the details, there is just a simple color like this. So you could just do it that way, but I like to drop it down. So just drop down this and do a color from curve. So I'm going to click this here, and now it's an actual curve that I can kind of adjust the colors with. The nice thing about this popping is we basically can control the opacity, and it's going to resolve that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and actually just want to kind of show, you know, if I turn it to black up here, it's basically, yeah, fading out. It looks much better. And if we pull it over into game, already feeling better up there. And then with this one, you know, like if I choose whatever color I want, it's basically, you know, similar to these over here. You can adjust it however. So that could be pretty nice. Of course, the value is pretty strong, so I can drop it down just with the darkness over here. And you can see that it's kind of doling it out if I went all the way black. But yeah, can soften it quite a bit. So what this can also do is, of course, if I am back to the white that we had originally, I can soften this out to be just like a really dull gray. And we're starting to kind of get that shape that we have over here. You know, there's a couple of adjustments, but yeah, already starting to feel somewhat like a smoke. There we go. Let's do a couple of quick adjustments to this. So now that we have that, we have our smoke kind of coming out. Let's say that we maybe slow down that velocity a little bit more. See what it feels like, at least at a lower volume. That's not too bad. Again, you know, if we adjust that, we might have to come and change the lifetime. So like how long it's staying around. And then let's also say I want to add a little bit of movement to randomize it a bit. So I'm going to click here on this add again, and I'm going to look for a rotate. And I'm just going to add a mesh rotation force. Wait, no, not that one. There we go. Sprite rotation rate. There we go. So with this one, I'm gonna exaggerate it at first, and you'll see that it's doing a spinning motion. And this kind of can help with that billowing effect, getting it to almost like curl outwards. So we don't want it, of course, to be that much, but we can kind of get a slight, tweak with it, getting it to a lower value there. So 20 is not too bad. Let's see a couple of other things. Maybe play around with that more. And then I think also, so the location. So let's see. I can type in sprite size, scale sprite size. And we have this here. And what you'll notice is if I add something like this, it could be interesting because it's starting very small and then it's getting much larger. So if I cranked this up, we could start with a smaller sprite and then just make it larger as it gets bigger and bigger. So that can be pretty nice to get some additional details. Now we're really starting to get that fuller effect out there. Let's see. Go back to the scale sprite size. Crank this up a bit more. And yeah, it feels good. It's almost hitting better than this one at the moment. Don't mind that one too much. We could also, another thing is, let's see, added size, might look at velocity over time. Let's see, soft forces. Soft forces and velocity. Mainly was looking at potentially adjusting the speed of it, just to see how I felt about that. But I don't know if it's worth it for this video at least, but that's basically my process, at least, of setting up a simple smoke. As you see here, now we have this smoke here. I can place them out throughout the scene, pretty nice and convenient. If I was having, of course, context helps a lot. So, this might still be too bright in the scene and all, but it, works and can run around with the character and everything else. This could be great for like some steam in the ground. And it really does come down to just making sure that you have a decent texture that comes in here. I think this is pretty important. And then just how you play around with the timing and the shapes of the actual particle itself to getting the best results. So that's about it for this video. Hope you enjoyed and found this helpful. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to drop them below in the comment section. And besides that, I'll see you in the next one.